Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Oscar, and welcome to this presentation about the LKAB. My name is Madeleine Björkman, and I work as a HR strategist and also the one responsible for the trainee program. With me today, I have Roger and Per-Mikael, and I think they should introduce themselves. Maybe Roger, you can start.
Thank you, Madeleine. My name is Roger Karlsson, and I work as a technical manager at the business area iron ore, which is the producing part of LKAB. And I'm located in Vitofors, Malmberget.
And my name is Per-Mikael, and I work as a process engineer in the pellet plant in Malmberget. And I will talk later about my career and my start in LKAB as a trainee.
Thank you. But first of all, safety first. At LKAB, we always talk about safety first. We always start every presentation and every meeting talking about evacuation routes, where the signs are, fire extinguisher, and also reassembly location. So I hope that you know all these things wherever you are located. Our values guide us. Our values at LKAB are committed, innovative, and responsible. And by committed, we mean that the performance of our customers is at the heart of everything we do. And by innovative, we mean that we emphasize creative thinking to drive improvements forward. And responsible. By responsible, we mean that we act for the long term, show respect, and put safety first. And LKAB's business is to be an outstanding supplier of highly upgraded iron ore products, minerals, technology, and services based on our core knowledge. And here are some facts about LKAB. I don't know how much you know about our company, but LKAB is the world's second largest supplier of iron ore pellets on the seaborne market. We are also one of the oldest industrial companies in Sweden, and we are 100% owned by the Swedish government. We are about 4,500 employees, but we are growing every minute, so approximately. And we are located in about 12 countries, both Sweden and outside of Sweden. And if you don't know this, we are located in the northern part of Sweden, mainly. This is our core business. We have 2 underground mines in Malmberget and in Kiruna. We also have open pit mines in Svappavaara. We have 1 harbor in Narvik, as well as 1 in Luleå. The largest one is in Narvik due to the water being ice-free and also the depth of the harbor. So we're mainly located above the Arctic Circle. And now we're going to talk more about the technicalities or business. I'm going to start with showing you a short video. About a year ago, LKAB presented a new strategy, and I think Roger will talk more about that after we see the film.
Effects of human-induced climate change are being the most important issues of our time.
It is the greatest test of our times.
In their future.
The most important change for our future. An essential journey. The road towards carbon-free by 2045. Together with our industry partners, we are facing the largest challenge in history. We are a part of the problem. Now we'll become part of the solution. With innovation, cooperation, and a firm belief that a better world is possible, we'll set a new world standard for mining. We'll shift to carbon-free sponge iron using green hydrogen technology. We'll extract critical minerals from mine waste. supplying the resources for the electric cars, wind turbines, and railways of the future. A historic investment in a zero-emission world, and for future generations and their jobs. We are transforming the global iron and steel industry.
So let's get back to the presentation, and Roger, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will present and discuss I will try to do it in quite a condensed way. What we will do, why we do it, how we will do it, and when we will do it. What you see here on this slide is our current products in the middle, which is iron ore pellets and also fines to the left. In the future, we will take a new position on the market and produce CO2-free sponge iron, which is what you see on the right-hand side. Around the 60s, LKAB converted quite a big volumes of our production from fines to the left to pellets, as you see in the middle. And now in 2020, we will take the next step to actually then produce pure iron instead of iron ore pellets, which is an iron oxide product. You can take the next slide. So why do we do this? As you see here, iron and steel industry corresponds to 7% of the greenhouse gases in the world. So we know that we are quite a big
effect of human-induced climate change are being some of the most important issues of our time. To us, our families.
Sorry for that.
I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Okay. So we know that we are quite a big part of the problem here. We use a lot of fossil energy, and as you see here, 7% of the global greenhouse gases. But here in the north of Sweden, we have unique prerequisites. We have a great mineral to work with, and we also have biofuel and access to CO2-free power, mostly hydropower up here in SE1, which is the most northern power area. And as I said on the previous slide, we have done this kind of technology leaps before. We went from fines to pellets, and now we will go from pellets to sponge iron. So we have both the will and the competence and the prerequisites to do this. You can take the next. Okay, you're already there, yeah. So the energy mix is the key to do this. As I said, the minerals and the energy mix. In Sweden, we have nuclear power and hydropower and biofuel and wind power. You see on the right-hand side on this slide. So the advantage to do it up here is that almost everything of the power is CO2 free or fossil free. It is an extremely small amount that emits carbon dioxide. There are some peat plants and so still in Sweden, but it's almost nothing. So great prerequisite is to do this in Sweden.
I have to ask, do you see the sharing or have it been paused?
I see it now, but I think it was paused for me for some seconds. So you can take the next slide.
Okay, good. You see this now?
Yeah, you have to jump one up.
This one.
Yeah, that one. So on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see the traditional way to produce iron today. It's in a blast furnace, which we feed with coal. not LKAB in this case, but the value chain, the industry feeds this with coal. This process emits 1.7 tons of CO2 per ton steel. Our new process that we develop within the company Hybrid, which is a collaboration between Vattenfall, SSAB, and LKAB, we will produce iron sponge with only 25 kilograms of CO2 per ton steel. So it's a dramatic change. 25 kilograms compared to 1,700 kilograms. It's only 1.5% of the origin emissions that the industry or the world are used to. So it's almost down to zero. Fantastic numbers, actually. So we can take the next. So how? This is actually our secret formula. It's not that very secret, and it's not very complex, but no one has done this in an industrial scale before. So what you see here on the left-hand side is our pellets, which is in this form hematite oxide. The traditional way is to put coal into this to reduce the oxygen from the pellet. And in that case, we get CO2 and pure iron. But as you see here, if we use hydrogen produced with CO2-free electricity, the process ends up in pure iron and only water. So everything, that's why I started to say that the key here is electricity. Everything is about how we produce the electricity in this case. But we have a surplus of CO2-free electricity up here in SE1 and in Sweden. So that is what we are aiming to use. You can take the next. And this is a process picture. Wait, I have to change a bit here. And this is a process picture of the hydrogen process. In the top here, you see the CO2-free pellet production. We produce now the CO2-free pellet with tall pitch oil, which is a biofuel here in Vitefors. We put that in our hybrid reactor, add CO2-free hydrogen, and get a loop with hydrogen and water that we circulate. So actually, even emissions of water will be low because we will circulate a lot of the process gases. The product from the hybrid shaft is sponge iron, and we mix that with scrap and put it in an electric arc furnace, and out comes raw steel, CO2-free raw steel. So next one. As I said a couple of times, we are now part of the problem and we want to become part of the solution. So by doing this, actually, we lower the CO2 emission with 35 million tons from the value chain. 35 million tons is a lot. Sweden's total emissions right now are 50 to 55 million tons. So the decrease in emissions is almost 70% of Sweden's total emissions today. And the ones of you that have read our sustainability report or that know more about LKAB maybe ask, how can you lower the emissions with 35 million tons when your emissions today are only 700,000 tons? And it's a very good question, but the answer is also quite simple. It's by taking this step in the value chain that we are taking the process that our customers today do in other parts of the world. We take that process into our value chain, and in that case we also import the CO2 emissions, but we will not do this in the traditional way. We will not do it with coal or LNG. We will do it with this CO2-free electricity, and so that's how we can lower the emission. It's by taking a step in the value chain and taking responsibility for the CO2 emissions that now are taking place at our customers' facilities around the world. Okay, and this is when, I think you can hit again, I'm missing a figure there, yeah. So this is a timesheet of when we will do this. And as you see, I have there was a figure before Madeleine hit the button right now, there was a figure on 1% 2027, but the new recent figure is 5% decrease of the CO2 emissions already 2026, and that is when we will have our first hybrid plant up and running here in Vitefors. It will produce around 1.4 million tons of CO2-free sponge iron. The second plant will be built at 2029, and so by 2029 we will actually have converted almost half of the production volume in Vitefors. The third plant, which we are aiming to build twice as big as the two first plants, will be built around 2033, and after that we have converted the whole of Malmberget to CO2-free sponge iron. And then the times after that, then Svappavaara, which is a second site that we produce on, and then Kiruna comes, which is the third site that we produce on. The exact dates for this in the future, 2038, 2044, 2046, is of course not as fixed as the dates that we have the closest coming of years in ahead of us, but maybe around 2045, somewhere there, we are aiming to have converted all our production to CO2-free sponge iron. And as we also see in this picture, by that date we have decreased the CO2 emissions with corresponding to 70% of Sweden's total emissions, 35 million tons. So this is it's astronomically big in terms of CO2 reduction and what we can do here in Sweden. It's a fantastic project or vision to work towards. You can take the next. The future of LKAB is not only CO2-free sponge iron. We see technology leaps in three major areas. So the one in the middle here, the carbon-free sponge iron I have talked about, we will also work with the new world standard for mining. We will have to go deeper, greater depths that we have never worked on before, and also with greater volumes. We will also extract critical minerals from mine waste in the future. We have a project here called Hybrid, and the aim is to extract phosphorus in the form of apatite mineral and rare earth minerals from our mine waste. And the phosphate will be used as a mineral fertilizer around in the world, and the rare earth minerals will be sold to the electronic industry, for example, for wind turbines, batteries, cars, etc. So it's a very big part of the conversion in the world to CO2 freeness. Take next. The transition to CO2 freeness starts in the mine. It's where we have our minerals. So, and as I also said, we need to go deeper. We need to work with more minerals, and we need to finance this transition that we work on now. It's a quite expensive step to take for LKAB, but we have the minerals. We have access to the minerals, and we know where to find them, and we know that we need to go deeper. So we work a lot with new mine layouts and new mining technologies. We work a lot with autonomous machines. And of course, CO2-free machines, electric machines, smaller machines, smaller volumes in the mine because of the pressure. The deeper we go, the pressure increases. So we need to work in smaller areas, but at the same time produce more. New management systems, and to integrate those systems even more. So it's a lot about digitalization. And what does this mean for the region? The picture you see here, it's the pilot plant, the hybrid pilot plant that we have built in Luleå. And this is the first massive investment that we have done in this transition. It was almost 1 billion SEK, not full, but almost 1 billion SEK. So this is an R&D center in Luleå where we develop the CO2-free hydrogen sponge iron process. The next step is the plant I talked about in Vitefors and also some investments in the mine. And we see that we need to invest 10 to 20 billion SEK a year during the coming 15 to 20 years. So this is also extreme numbers. And the total of that from only LKAB's point of view is 300 to 400 billions over this period. And in those numbers, the investments in renewable energy, the power industry is not included. So, I mean, the power industry also need to meet up the need that we have for CO2-free power. Our total need for CO2-free power is 55 terawatt hours. So that can be compared to 3-4 nuclear power plants that electricity that need to be added in some way in the net somewhere. And the investment period, as we are aiming to build plant by plant by plant by plant for all this time on up to 2045. So we see that the constructors and entrepreneurs that will build and develop these facilities, and also engineers, we see an amount of up to 3,000 jobs per year to be able to run and execute these investments. So there is a fantastic future for the industry up here. And I think there was one last slide. Yeah, and this is actually the first CO2-free steel vehicle that has been produced with steel from this pilot plant I showed in Luleå. And it's Volvo has built this with the steel from SSAB that has been produced in hybrids plant. So this is quite cool, actually, that we have already succeeded to do this. Hybrid started at 2016, and now 2021, the first vehicle is in place. So that's we're proud of that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Roger. Sorry about the little technical issues. You always have to have some. But I can also, before Mikael will continue, I will just recommend you to go on Vimeo and search for LKAB. There's a lot of videos there. So I think there's also a couple of interviews where Roger participates. So I can recommend you to go there to learn more about LKAB and what we do and our company. Yes, but Mikael, you can continue.
Yes, thank you, Madeleine. You can take the next picture. So, as I mentioned previously, my name is Mikael, born and raised here in the northern Sweden. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my career, my startup as a trainee in LKAB in 2008, and what I'm doing now, connected to what Roger discussed earlier. So, fresh from school in Luleå in 2008, I got a position as a trainee here in Malmberget. And I actually started right from the bat working at the pellet plants. And I liked it very much, so I have been most of my career, so right now about 13 years, most of my time has been here at the pellet plants. They are very fascinating machines, and you can always make things go a little bit smoother. So I've done a career here from process engineer to senior, and then right now I'm a specialist. And at the moment I'm working with this transformation that Roger is describing, and working in the pre-study for this new sponge iron plant that we are going to start in 2026 in full-scale production. And that plant is going to take half of one of our two plants here in Malmberget. Half of that pellet is going to go there. Can take the next slide. So this is a picture from back in 2008 when I was a trainee, and this shows a mine in Greenland which LKAB produced olivine in back in the days. And we got all of our trainees got an opportunity to do different visits to learn things from other sites, LKAB sites around the world. So I know some of us were in England and other places, but I got to visit this mine in Greenland, and we did an internal audit, which was very exciting. The trainee year otherwise was very good in my mind. I got the opportunity to visit all the different parts of LKAB, from underground, all the different things that happens there, from making the infrastructure to producing, blasting and so on, up to the above ground facilities, beneficiation, crushing, grinding and pelletizing, and also the logistical parts with railway and harbors was a part of the trainee year. So very good opportunity for me, and I think it was a key part of me learning so much about LKAB. So that has been good for me in the career from that point on, I think. So this is a picture of the plants that I work at right now, and I'm standing right now in my office in between the two plants. You can see like a skywalk there between them, between the blue newer MK3 plant and the red older Bandungsverket plant. So these are the two pellet plants we have here in Malmberget, and the red one is right now working with fossil-free oil, and those pellets are going to the hybrid plant, which we are planning to build in a few years and commission in 5 years from now. So what we do here is we get magnetite slurry from the beneficiation plant. We agglomerate the magnetite to green balls, roughly 1 centimeter in size. Those green balls are then going to the straight grate furnace, oxidize them to hematite, sinter them to make them strong enough to be able to withstand the logistics to the blast furnace, and then to not break inside of the blast furnace. What you also can see in this picture is the dams for the waste. And some of that waste, as Roger talked about, is going to be a raw material in the future. So that's also exciting. Next picture. Another thing that I am grateful for, and I think very, very good for both me and LKAB, is the opportunities that I have been given to visit other companies that work in the same field. So this picture is from an open pit hematite mine in Canada, Iron Ore Company of Canada, which are producing in the Labrador Island quite a lot of pellets, about the same amount that we do almost. And we have had like a cooperation. They visited us and we visited them, and I brought back a very good idea or process that they use, that we are installing at the moment to achieve warmer green balls to more efficient pelletizing. So this is very nice to be able to look around and get ideas from others. This is a picture of the hybrid oil tank, the new one that we are using to feed Bandungsverket to be able to produce fossil-free pellets, which we have been doing now for almost a year. So inside of this tank we have tall oil pitch, which is a residue from the paper industry. So it's pine trees originally and other like spruce trees and stuff, and the things that they can't do anything else with, that only is good enough to burn, that is what we buy, and we need to heat it up before we can burn it inside of the furnace, otherwise it's too thick. So it's very similar to our original fossil heavy fuel oil, but in this case fossil free. So this picture shows me inside of the pellet plant, And in this case, I am looking inside of the furnace to see the oil combust and burn. And if you take the next picture, you can see what I saw. So, of course, I only see one of this at the same time, but this picture shows two different flames. To the left is the fossil heavy fuel oil burning, and to the right is the fossil-free tall oil pitch. And not much of a difference. Both work perfectly fine. And actually, the only thing we want is to have the air hot enough to process the magnetite green balls into hematite pellets. So both work very good for us. So what you see here is the inside of the straight grate pellet plant, the combustion furnace, and on the other side, the flame. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Per Mikael. I'm going to talk a little bit for the last few minutes about the trainee program. And I'm going to start by showing you a picture. This is our group that started in September 2020. So 12 trainees started the program and they ended the program in June this year. And this was also the largest group we have had, and also the first group and the first trainee program conducted in English. And that is something that we are planning to do for the next trainee program as well. And these are located both in Kiruna and in Malmberget. So some information about the trainee program. The next one starts September 1st next year, and we have you can apply for the program now until December 5th. The length of the program is 9 months, and we are looking for those who have or will have by the start of the program a bachelor's or master's degree. And we are looking for engineers within the technical areas as well as economists. And the location of the program is decided by our departments who want or would like to have a trainee within their department. But for the next program, it's Kiruna, Svappavaara or Malmberget. And the program, as Per Mikael also talked about, contains a number of mandatory blocks for all the trainees. And with longer workplace practices that follow LKAB's process. So our pelletizing plants, our mines, the logistics department, the harbors, and also you can decide, depending on what the trainees are interested in, to visit or learn more about other departments. The program also includes a number of LKAB trainings, as well as specific training focused on personal development and leadership. And this training is something that we put together for the last trainee program, and we'll continue with for the next trainee program as well. And it's also possible to do a visit abroad outside of Sweden to one of our facilities there. The trainee group that started last year will visit England during the next year, because due to the COVID situation, we haven't been able to do that. So this is some short information. I hope that a couple of, maybe most of you are going to talk to us in the afternoon together with me and my colleagues. And you can ask more specific questions then if you would like, or now. So that was the entire presentation. But please, if you have a question for me, for Per Mikael or for Roger, you have the opportunity to ask them now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a really great presentation, a lot of information, and also really cool to listen on the experience from Per Mikael. We have some questions, and please, the audience, if you have any questions now, you can of course type it in the chat or unmute yourself. Or if you will do a contact call later this afternoon, you can of course then discuss that question there. We have here a question sent 12:36. I think you can see it in the chat. So it's a question about internship jobs and opportunities for and trainee positions, probably for students within a chemical background. Also, how will the general recruitment process look like at LKAB? That's two of the first questions, and also if there are any opportunities during summer for process and chemical engineers. I guess that's a summer job question.
I don't know, maybe Per Mikael, you know, we have a lot of persons in our company that has a chemical background, and we also have a laboratory, well, mainly in Malmberget. Per Mikael, maybe you can talk a little bit more about
for
that.
sure, chemical engineers are one of the most interesting educations that you can have working in the above ground operation. When you're going to transform the magnetite minerals into the finished product, then chemical background is very, very interesting and important to have people knowing those exact chemical reactions that happens in detail and so on.
Yes, so a question regarding a chemical background, yes, it's very relevant. I can then add another question. There are a lot of different type of engineering backgrounds, for example, industrial, mechanical, electro, etc. The trainee positions, are they in different tracks, or do you build your own profile in the program, or how does that look like?
Well, there are parts of the trainee program that is mandatory and the same for the entire group, regardless of what background or interest you have. But you have also the opportunity to build your own way, to visit departments or places that you are interested in from your background. And also depending on which department you are placed and located in, it's a possibility to well, make the best or the most interesting of your trainee year.
Yes, thank you. Great. So a question then about the recruitment process. Could you say some brief words about that?
If we're talking about the trainee positions, we have opened the application now until December 5th. After that, we will go through all the applications. We also, those who go to the next step will participate in an assessment center. And that means that there are some tests, some cases, and also interviews. And those who go through that process will be able to come up and visit Kiruna or Malmberget, maybe in March next year, and also visit our facilities and meet the managers, who will also be the managers for the trainees.
Cool. So, but the assessment test is not located in Kiruna or Malmberget?
No, the assessments will be done through Teams or Zoom or so.
Yes, okay, remotely.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And for those who are interested in summer jobs, for example, year 3 or 4 at universities, are there any open positions for those type of roles?
We take in a lot of summer jobs during the summers, but mainly within the blue collar fields. I'm not sure how many, maybe in the economic field we can take in some summer jobs, but mainly because within the white collars there's vacation and so on, so it's not that easy to maybe work in those departments or alone.
Yes.
Without a mentor.
Okay, cool.
I can fill in there a bit. I studied at KTH between 2000 and 2004, and I worked all the summers here in Vitefors in the production plant and down in the mine, and that was extremely good. I got to know the mine, I got to know the process plants, and so I'm very grateful for those summers, because that means that even if I do not work as much in the plant now, I know a lot of the facilities and what it looks down in the mine. So it's both cool and interesting summer jobs.
Yes, that's also my own experience and the recommendation for all students to really build a fundamental knowledge about the process itself, and don't start managing problems without trying to understand the system itself. For example, in a summer job of a blue collar job.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really good, because I think it's very beneficial, as you both said, to have gotten to know the business, and it's also a great summer job to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So it seems like there are no more questions. In that case, we will end this seminar, and the recordings will be published later this week, maybe tomorrow, or otherwise next week. You can see that on our different types of social medias, Facebook or Instagram. We will publish something so you understand how to see this presentation. Then I will say thank you so much for LKAB. It was a really cool presentation, and also very fun to hear your stories about the company. And by that, I will say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.